Okay, so today I am out cutting leaners that are out in the woods that are still full of really good firewood. The only problem is they're all leaning and stuck up in other trees. A lot of people call these widowmakers because they tend to snap halfway up and come back at the person cutting the tree down, or they get hung up in a fashion that makes them fall backwards towards the person doing the cutting. So you want to proceed with extreme caution when cutting these. Definitely recommend that you wear a hard helmet, even though I am not. And you go through, and I always recommend you clear a path if there's debris in the way, so you have a way out. Last thing you want to do is see that tree coming down at you and you have nowhere to run, or you turn to run and you get hung up in brush or you trip over branches that are in the way. So I'm going through cutting the brush out of the way. A lot of this is thorns that would easily trip you or hang up on your pants and slow you down. So I'm following that stuff and I'm getting the little stuff cut up so I can toss it out of the way here. That's cutting the thorns and branches out of the way. And then I try to cut these logs so that when I am actually logging this tree up, it's going to be about the same size that I'd want to cut anyways to burn. And you can see I just take it one section at a time, but look at that branch in the background that just fell. If that tree were vertical and I was directly underneath it, that would have totally landed on my head, hence the reason for a hard helmet. So always be aware of the flimsy dead branches above your head, or if this tree were fallen over into another dead tree, that might have branches that also fall. Typically when it's on a nice angle and leaning pretty sharp, those branches fall quite a ways away from you, but that's not always the case. So the plan is here to fall it so it's as vertical as possible. And then usually it's pretty much like cutting down an actual tree, except there's no base to it that's anchored in the ground. It's just sitting there. You can sometimes get that last cut so you can just push it over. Almost every single time, though, that leaning tree is going to come back towards the base of where that tree was at. So it's going to fall back towards the stump. It's very rarely going to just slide down the tree that it's hung up in. So as I get it more and more vertical here, you're going to see at the very end of this, I can actually just make a couple cuts and notch it, and I'm going to just push the tree with the chainsaw, and I'm going to push it right over. Problem is, once you get it more vertical, all of those dead branches that are hung up on the top of the tree or on the other tree that it's hung up in, all those dead branches come down at you instead of falling away from you because you're more vertical underneath that dead tree now. Again, clearing a path, making sure I have somewhere to go, and then I knock it over, jump out of the way, and that tree fell right back towards where it started. Here's another one. This one's a little bit heavier tree. It's a little bit thicker here at the base. So I'm going to start by trying to cut it and get it fallen vertical. We're going to make some bigger cuts here. Log it up. At the very top of this tree, there's probably a 20-foot long branch. It's actually the top of the tree. It's about 20 foot long, but it's very rotted and it's already bowed towards me. So as I go, I got to be careful and make sure that does not come back at me. This one I'm going to actually notch in some of the spots here because as you cut this, the log actually bows the opposite direction that it would if it was vertical. So if I notch it on the top, that's where it's going to end up pinching. And I want it to pinch as much as possible so that it actually pinches on the top and then it slides down and falls. Notching it on the bottom will not be any good because that's not where the pressure of this trunk is at. You can see the notch right there. I thought I'd be able to kick it over, but there's still way too much pressure in that tree. Like I said, it's a lot of weight because it's a much wider trunk. So since it's not moving there, instead of risking pinching the saw and the bar in the tree, I'm going to just cut up a little bit higher. They always go eventually. And here we're going to get our first fall on this big old piece of tree. Just like that. And look, there's a log that came with it already cut to size. I'm not going to waste this because there's still good wood down here on that piece that's attached to the ground. I want to cut that off, and we'll end up splitting that. Always keep an eye on that dead stuff that's up in the air, because as this tree falls and gets closer and closer to vertical, those branches at the very top bend or bow or give more and more. So the farther it falls, the more likely you are to get branches that fall with it. There's my knock on that tree. And there we got about another 6-foot log off of that. Like I said before, always clear a path. You always want a safe escape route in case stuff does come back at you. It's also best to do this when you have a really sharp chain. If you're cutting at this with a dull chain, you're going to wear yourself out, and you're a lot more likely to pay less attention to what's going on around you because you're working harder at cutting through that log. And there it pushes off towards the side, and it slides down a little bit more. And at the angle that it's on, I know that tree is not going to slide to the left of me because it's braced up against another solid live tree right there. So I'm going to clear a little bit more of a path, make sure I have that escape route in the direction of that live tree, because there's no way that tree's going to fall that direction right now. And then we'll make our next cut. Always let the chainsaw do the work for you. If you're applying a ton of force to this, you're just going to wear yourself out, like I said. Definitely worth having a sharp chain as you're doing this. Even if you have to change a dull chain so that you have a sharper one, it's worth the extra time. Now on this cut, the tree is going to slide down in between that big tree that's in front of me on the left side and that smaller tree that's up in front of me on the right of this leaner. So that makes it a little more difficult to get to. I'm going to cut a little deeper here and get this baby to fall. And now I have to change positions, and I've got a cut on the right side of the tree. So I'm going to take down that one that's in the way, because potentially that could end up falling and hitting on me if the tree goes that direction. Clear up some more of these thorns and some of the brush in my way so I have that escape route. And this is going to end up being my final cut before the tree falls. But watch that top of the tree as this falls. Like I said, these are really dangerous, especially when it's dead and rotted towards the top. And you're going to notice the tree splits part way up as it comes down. You'll see me jump out of the way here really quick. I'm clearing more brush because I can already foresee this happening. It's very rare that I cut one of these down and I don't have branches come back at me. Here we go. Watch that top half bow, and then it just snaps and falls backwards, practically right where I was standing at. But it's down, along with all of the other ones. Now I just gotta log them up and get them split.